All right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Collaborative Partnerships to Drive Program Improvement, the Oregon ABS State Team Approach. This webinar is generously sponsored by our friends at Empira OneFlow, and today we have Shanti Subramanyam, who is going to share a few words with us. Shanti?
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for joining. We welcome you and appreciate your time. And I am going to go ahead and share. So wanted to first, one second, sorry about that. Talk about what the problem is in collaboration. We're all here to discuss collaboration. And the most important thing for collaboration is to have, to be able to share. And currently, many of us know that the tools that we have are more like this in terms of having separate pieces of the data or separate partners, each holding a piece of the data. And what this leads to is a lot of redundancy and the inability to collaborate effectively. And that's why what we are presenting today is really relevant to the topic that we're going to hear about today. So what is OneFlow? OneFlow is a platform for collaborative case management. But case management is so much more, as in our definition, than just tracking information about participants or your clients. So in order for case management to be successful, it has to provide support for the end-to-end process. And the best data collection systems are those where people are not just coming in to put data in just because it's required. The best data systems are those where people get to do their jobs and the data is being collected at every step and the performance and is naturally tracked. So OneFlow is that platform that supports that collaboration, that end-to-end process, that the data collection, and it supports multiple partners working together, sharing data, making referrals, being able to close the loop, and removing that redundancy that takes place today. OneFlow can transform your operations, make it far more efficient, increase the collaboration by allowing you to share customer data with their permission, to improve that efficiency. And it helps to reduce the time for end clients to get to results. What that means, and we've seen a reduction for our clients for between 75% and 83% in the total time between when they start and they can actually get some into a program or get services and so on. It also obviously saves money. Staff time is saved. And right now with COVID, and ongoing, even if the future has changed, that has happened now. Everything's going to go virtual. is virtual. We need to support it virtual. And more importantly, collaboration among multiple entities has to be virtual. And so the platform to support it is what OneFlow is. It also helps to meet compliance requirements. So if you're required to track DOL, Pearl, or H-1B grants or other grants, there's often reporting requirements, compliance requirements, and that is what OneFlow helps to track. So the collaboration in OneFlow is, allows multiple entities to come together, the client to start that process, the partners, whether they're training providers, service providers, community partners, to get on one platform, adult education, workforce development. And so, of course, we're not in, we know that everyone's got other systems out there. And so the need is for one platform to bring everything together, to have integrations between platforms. And we've done that in so many situations. We integrate between student systems, other systems, sending data to state systems, and so on, and both on an initial basis and continuous basis. So this is the platform that allows that data sharing, creates an ecosystem of all the partners, breaks down those silos. So you cannot have successful case management and working together, collaboration, without sharing data. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of redundancy. So OneFlow helps to do all of this and provides that platform while tracking outcomes, improving outcomes, tracking time, and making the performance possible. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here and hearing what we have to say.
Shanti, thank you so much. And thank you to Empire OneFlow for their sponsorship. This webinar would not be available free of charge for our members if it weren't for you and your support. So thank you so much. I'd like to invite everybody to say hello and list where they're from in the chat box. You can post any questions you have in the Q&A section. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our lead presenter, Donna Llewellyn. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen for you. That is, if I've got this down. I think I've got it down. Can you see it okay, everybody? My team is nodding, so that's great. Perfect. So thanks for joining us today. We're excited to share with you our approach to collaborative partnership. I'll take just a couple of seconds to introduce the team from Oregon. So I'm Donna Llewellyn. I am the State of Oregon's Adult Basic Skills Director. I am joined today by Dr. Adrian Oakes, who serves as our Oregon GED Test Administrator, Dr. Helen Dunford, who is our ABE State Leadership Coordinator. She works on our professional development and helps us work with the field to get them what they need. Kelly Zink is with us. She is our education research team analyst. She's the person who helps us crunch our numbers and make data-informed decisions. And then we have Nick Bender, who is our education specialist. He really works with our local providers to ensure compliance, and he helps us stay in compliance with the feds as well. And in the true spirit of partnership, Nick will be presenting with us, and then shortly thereafter, Nick will actually be leaving this presentation because he actually has a program improvement plan call with one of our providers scheduled. And so you'll hear a little bit more about what that means in a little bit. And then although she's not with us this morning, Tammy Perkins is our administrative specialist, and she really is the hub of communication and keeps track of all the different things that we have going on, coming and going from our agency. So next piece, we're going to talk a little bit very quickly about our philosophical approach to state leadership and partnership. We really take a holistic approach around wrapping around our students. Students are at the center of everything we do. And our philosophical approach is that in partnership with OCTAE, our WIOA partners, and our local providers, we at the state team can help wrap around the students to support them and lift them up and help them move along their educational journey. Just as we do that for the students, we actually approach our state support for our local programs in the same way. So we wrap around our local program, providing compliance and technical assistance. We do self-assessments and help them do program improvement plans. We provide them with training as well as data and research so that they can learn how to make data-informed decisions around, whether or not policies are working or the practices that they're implementing are actually moving the needle in the way in which they hope. We provide professional development opportunities, whether that be we provide that ourselves or partner with experts in the field. And then we provide policy and advocacy for them, both at the state level and support for them at the national level as well. We take an approach that to partner is a verb. It requires action. Some of the ways in which we partner with our local programs is we have monthly director calls. And those are really an opportunity for us to share information and for the directors to interact with us and ask us pretty much anything that might be on their mind. You'll see an acronym here that says OCABSD. That's the Oregon Council for Adult Basic Skills Development. That is a council that meets on a quarterly basis with representatives from all of the adult basic education Title II providers in the state of Oregon. And the graphic to the side of the slide actually shows the state and where our providers are located. The different shading indicates our local workforce investment or local workforce development boards. We also partner with them in policy making. We don't just issue policies from our office without vetting them and asking for feedback from our local providers. Things can look a lot different for us at the state level than it does for those who are actually trying to implement them. Now, obviously, there are times where Octave gives us a policy and says, "Thou shalt do this," and we don't really have much of a choice. But what we do have a choice in doing is working and supporting the local programs in their implementation of those policies. The other thing that we try to be really transparent. So with our local providers, we do our best to be honest with them. If we don't know the answer, we say we don't know the answer. We need to do some research. Or if we see something coming down, coming down the pike, we try to let them know. And that helps build trust. And that has been, I believe, one of the cornerstones for us in terms of COVID-19 and our local providers feeling comfortable in sharing with us what some of the actual on the ground challenges have been in terms of delivering services, and also giving them the ability to call us and ask us, I'm thinking about doing this, but would it be allowable? And that's really important, particularly now in times where we're having to think outside of the box per se. One of the quotes that I wanted to share with you is one of our local program directors during a program improvement debrief call shared that they feel like they're part of our team at the state. We really try not to make it be us and them. We really try to make it be, like I said in the slide about wrapping around the student, it's about us in partnership and delivering Title II services in the state of Oregon. So now I am actually going to turn it over to my friend Adrian, who is going to talk about high school equivalency.
Thank you, Donna. High school equivalency. Yes, it's a part of what we do in our team at the state. And I'll have the opportunity to describe the hierarchy and describe the, what we call a partnership map with what we do with the state. So at the very top, where we are the state of Oregon, and we have our governor, Kate Brown, who manages all of the different agencies throughout the state. Our agency is called, we refer to it as the HEC. It's the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and they oversee all of our work. And the purpose of the HEC, it's the agency and they're responsible for ensuring pathways to post-secondary education for all Oregonians. And within the HEC is our small department known as CCWD, Community Colleges and Workforce Development. And within this group, we have the OCABSD that Donna mentioned, which is the Council of Directors. And within that, we have ABS, Adult Basic Skills. So I know most of this will be familiar to most of you. And within our Adult Basic Skills and OCABSD, we comprise an entity that oversees and works with the 17 community colleges and prisons throughout Oregon. My role in all of this is that I serve as the high school equivalency coordinator, also as the GED administrator for the state of Oregon, and I'm the one monitoring the chats. And I saw several people that are on the call that are also in high school equivalency and GED administration. So hello, hello. So my role, I'm part of CCWD and the Adult Basic Skills Development. So all of this coming together, and Donna did a great job of talking about when we make decisions and when we have different things that we offer our ABS departments throughout the state, it's all transparent. We bring our wishes, we bring our concerns, we learn from the people in the field, and then we're able to make informed and cautious and decisions that serve everybody, not just us at the state. So we're very careful about being inclusive. I'll give an example of that inclusivity. We had the opportunity to identify several different options when it comes to high school equivalency. Many of you are familiar with high school equivalency, and they use the term GED, they use it synonymously. And we know that that's not exactly the case. In fact, when we spoke with adult basic skills directors throughout the state, not only our state, but other states, they said, you know, there are other options out there. Why is it that Oregon is only considering the GED test? To which we replied, that's a very good question. We will examine it. And during that examination, we looked at, because the directors asked us to consider, what are other ways of testing our students? Because in Oregon, we have the second highest dropout rate in the entire country. So it's very important that we have an equivalency, a high school equivalency option that will reach a lot of people, or more people than we're currently reaching. And so we took the time to begin to study other high school equivalency options. And one thing we thought about was this great professional development opportunity that we have, known as the Oregon GED Summit. We're about 6 years in, very successful. We bring together adult basic educators from all over the Pacific Northwest, and in some cases all over the country, to talk about what they do, what makes them so effective, and how they can help our educators in our state. Fabulous opportunity. But even something as small as that, when talking with our directors, we thought, why are we calling it the GED Summit when really we're talking about high school equivalency? We want to be able to broaden it. So we assured them, yes, this year we will broaden it, not call it the GED Summit. We'll consider it as an adult education conference. We hadn't named it, but we were on the verge of it. And the topics and the speakers and the forum were not just geared toward the GED, but toward other high school equivalency options. And then, of course, you know what happened. Yes, COVID hit, which put our conference on hold, but we haven't stopped thinking about it. Again, because we're in constant communication with the directors in the field, we made a promise to them that we will continue to train on high school equivalency, broaden the scope, and use their expertise to make certain that it's something that's needed and wanted by all Oregonians. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Kelly here. I'm going to talk about how we help programs make informed, data-informed decision-making. Next slide, please. So I really partner with three different groups of people. The first being the state team itself. And I partner by bringing a data snippet or a short kind of 10-minute data teaser, if you will, to team meetings in order to bring data front and center in our team conversations and to help inform our work. So you can see a sample of the topics listed here. They range from the results from data desk audits, to program performance, to student retention, and to federal reporting summaries. And I have a phrase that I like to use. I really consider my job is done when I raise more questions and I provide answers. Secondly, I partner with local program data professionals. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. I do this by hosting monthly meetings with various topics related to technical assistance, professional development, and data integrity. And you can see a resource listed here, the Data Professionals Meeting Work Plan. And there'll be a slide at the end of the presentation with directions on how to access these resources. I also perform quarterly data audits to monitor data quality and program performance and progress. And then there was also a data manual created in partnership with local program data professionals to kind of provide a how-to guide and to be a technical resource, especially for those newer data professionals. And again, you'll see a resource listed, the TOPS Pro Enterprise Manual for Oregon. Third, I partner with local program directors. And for example, I provided a year-long incremental training on the performance-based funding model in advance of its implementation in order to establish transparency and get buy-in on decision points. And even though the performance-based funding model is now implemented, this training continues and is ongoing. Also, I ensure that there is a local data focus at meetings and trainings like the Oregon Leadership Academy, which you'll hear more about from Helen in a few moments. And I do this in order to provide context and to relate the learning outcomes to local programs and to their performance at their program. And then I created a data visualization to change how programs see measurable skill gains and to bring a student-centered focus to the data. So you can see part of the data visualization here. This is Oregon ABE program performance compared with federal targets. You'll see 3 program years along the top, and then along the side, you'll see the % variation, either positive or negative, from the federal target. Bars that go up above are indicate that the state met or exceeded program performance. Bars that go below 0 indicate that the state did not meet the federal target. So you can see in the first 2 program years, Oregon met or exceeded federal targets in all ABE levels. In program year 2018-19, you can see in the kind of light green that Oregon did not meet the federal target in ABE level 2 by 1%. And then in the teal, dark teal there, you can see that Oregon did not meet the federal target in ABE level 6 and missed that target by 3%. However, if we continue with the data visualization, you can see that Oregon, that I calculated the number of students, additional students that needed to make a measurable skill gain in order to meet or exceed that federal target. So where Oregon did not meet the federal target in ABE level 2 by 1%, that calculated out to only 6 additional students statewide that needed to make an additional measurable skill gain. And similarly in ABE level 6, where the state did not meet the target by 3%, we only needed 8 more students statewide to make a measurable skill gain in order to meet that federal target. So there was a similar analysis run for each program, and each program received a report like this for ABE and then a report for ESL levels. And if you click to the next slide, you can see some feedback from local directors. There are 3 quotes that I'd like to share. It helps instructors and others see how close we are to meeting targets. I like the numbers because it makes it real students. And I had an epiphany. I can target my resources knowing how many students we need to meet the target. And now I'd like to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Kelly, and thanks again to everyone tuning in today. Continues to impress me how we're also apart physically, and yet we've got 216 participants on this call. So that's just fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about the cycle of program improvement. And this will tie together our risk assessment process, including financial risk assessment, local program performance risk assessment. It'll also incorporate further discussion of our measurable skill gain data using program-specific bar charts of the kind that Kelly just showed you. But instead of the one that Kelly showed you, which represents the overall performance of the state of Oregon in each of the 12 education functioning levels, we're going to see a breakout that's program-specific and incorporated into their risk assessment. We'll also take a quick look at some other components in the risk assessment and program improvement process. What you're looking at right now is a table of contents from a risk assessment program improvement document, the kind that's generated each year for each of our 17 WIOA Title II subrecipients. So next slide, please. And the first part of that risk assessment document, which is drawn up by the state team by me and then shared with each individual program, is the financial risk assessment. You can see briefly here that the program in question got a low risk rating for this year for financial risk. And that's because they met the 3 criteria. Number 1, that all their financial documents were submitted by due dates. Number 2, that the program invoiced community colleges and workforce development. That's the state agency where the Title II grant is received and then competed across the state. So they invoiced us for at least 99% of the federal funds in their annual budget. And 3, that the program met the maintenance of effort requirement such that non-federal Title II funds expended at the local program were at least 1/3 of the amount of the federal Title II funds. The risk assessment also includes a program performance risk component. And here you see the program in question got a high risk rating for their program performance for this year. And that was because they met the following criteria highlighted in yellow. They submitted less than 75% of their compliance documents for that year on time. And they met measurable skill gain statewide targets in less than 75% of the education functioning levels. Of course, there's 12 EFLs, which means they did not make our ask of meeting the statewide target in 9 out of the 12. They met in less than that. And they also experienced a local ABS director turnover during the program year for which this risk assessment was written up. So they received a high risk rating for that. And as you'll see later on in the PIP section, or the program improvement plan section, there are deliverables for the following year that reflect upon the criteria in this risk assessment. Next slide, please. The risk assessment also includes a subrecipient or local program level breakout of measurable skill gain data across the 12 education functioning levels, or EFLs. Here you see 6 of those EFLs represented. These are the ESL education functioning levels for this local program. If you look in the rightmost column, representing the 18-19 year, which is the year for which this risk assessment was written, you can see that this program actually did a pretty good job. They exceeded the statewide targets for ESL education functioning levels in 5 out of the 6 education functioning levels in level 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they were below the statewide target at only 1 education functioning level for ESL, that was level 2. And if you look at the chart, the lower section of the bar graph, where we're hopefully having the pointer point right now, you can see the raw number of students by which that program missed the statewide MSG target for that education functioning level. So this program Even though they missed level 2 ESL, the statewide target, they only missed by 1 student. So pretty close. And now we're going to move on to the program improvement plan. This is a part of the document that's collaboratively written by the state team and also by the local program. What you're looking at here are some deliverables written by the state team that were assigned to all 17 local programs in Oregon. I wrote the deliverable, focusing on some key things we need those programs to do across the year. And then the local programs filled in the action steps, the person who will do those action steps, when they'll have it done, what the measurable outcome or the benchmark that they will identify for accomplishing that deliverable will be. So the kinds of things we ask our local programs to do as part of their program improvement plans are in line with the things we do across the year. So we ask for 100% of compliance documents submitted by due dates. We want them to meet the statewide measurable skill gain targets in at least 75% of their education functioning levels. We help them pick a measurable of education functioning level to focus on improving measurable skill gain in. Often it's one where they missed the previous year, but just a few students. So for this program, we ask them to meet statewide MSG target in ABE level 1. And we also ask them to be ready to produce ledger level financial information that verifies local program WIOA T2 federal funds expended and non-federal funds expended. This is part of our ongoing fiscal monitoring, and it's a reminder to the programs that they need to be able to do that for state to local monitoring, or in the event of a federal to state monitoring that reaches through the state team into local programs. So one more slide, please. The programs also do a great job of writing their own deliverables in the PIP. This is where they choose the things that they want to focus on. It might be continuing something that they want to put resources into in the future as well. It might be starting something new. This is a great example. I won't read you the whole thing, but I'll summarize it for you. This is a local program, a Title II program at a community college in Oregon that had done a jumpstart program. It's like a new intake registration and almost like a case management approach to supporting students. Sorry, I was just looking at some other Oregon folks in the chat. Thanks for being here, everyone. And what they wanted to do was take that program from their larger community college campus and expand it to additional satellite community college campus to give all of the students in their program the benefit of their Jumpstart program. And they identified their own action steps, a person accountable, the timeline to accomplish it, what the measurable outcomes would be that would signify that they'd accomplished this deliverable. And then they provided some additional notes there. So the general cycle that I can talk about, if you go to the next slide, the annual calendar on which all these things happen. There we go. So the time frame when I go out and meet with local programs, which was in person in the spring of 19, mostly remote during 2020, it's between January and May. We shoot for a 2-day visit at each of the 17 programs. On the first day is an administrative meeting with a state team member, which is me, as well as the local ABS director, local accounting staff, and other local ABS staff. And on day 2, I look at classroom observations. That, of course, is happening all remotely right now, which I think is going pretty well. And then once the program year ends, I will then go and write the risk assessments reflecting on the previous program year. I share those risk assessments, the ones we just looked at, in September at the beginning of the program year. And then the programs have about a month to review their risk ratings, the MSG data, and then fill in their part of the PIPs or the program improvement plans. We then meet around October or November, about right now, to review with the state team and the local program, each local program's PIP, to talk about what happened in the previous year and then set some goals and some plans for the upcoming year.
Hey, Nick, this is Adrienne. I have a question that would fit in nicely here.
Yes.
And the question reads, will the participants be able to receive copies of the program, of their program improvement plans?
The participants
be able to receive copies of their PIP.
Which the participants on this call?
No. Oh, perhaps. Oh, okay. I thought they meant the.
Every local program, every T2 subrecipient in Oregon, of course, receives a copy of the risk assessment and then collaboratively builds a program improvement plan along with the state team.
Okay, and
if other people here are looking for related materials, I will put my email in the chat box, and it would be good to follow up with me afterwards, and I can send you a bundle of materials.
That's great.
That might be helpful.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Nick. And hello, everybody from a somewhat overcast Oregon wine country. It's lovely to be here with you all. Professional development. Well, of course, professional development decisions should never be made in isolation, but always in partnership with the field. And the field in turn should be working in partnership with faculty and other program contributors. And one would hope, by extension, the students would also have a voice, which is extremely important because, as Donna said at the beginning of this presentation, you know, students are at the center of everything that we do. So let's talk about what informs professional development for the Oregon State team and for our Title II programs. You know, there are basically three sources, major sources of input for professional development decisions that drive the provision of professional development for Title II programs in Oregon. The first one is, of course, and I think Kelly referred to this, you know, WIOA requirements. You know, for example, the requirement to use learning standards. And actually, I have to say, as an aside here, because I've noticed that we have some members of the field who've worked on learning standards participating today. Learning standards in Oregon would be a perfect example of collaboration with the field because all of our current new materials have been created by teams from comprised of trainers from our 17 programs. I would urge you to take a look at the HEC CCWD website to see the kinds of resources and materials that collaborative effort has produced, because we're very proud of that. But obviously, compliance is important. We need to provide the technical support the programs need to meet requirements. Input from the field is also critical. We get that input formally and informally. We have surveys, we have the discussions during the performance improvement plan debriefs, but we also get emails, phone calls, conversations at our council meetings and that sort of thing. And we take input from the field extremely seriously, as we should. Finally, to focus more and specifically on what Nick was talking about there, our risk assessment and performance improvement plan process really helps us to hone in on what it is that our programs need in terms of professional development support. And I've put in parentheses there an example. What has come out of recent cycles of performance improvement plans, risk assessments, has been the critical need to help our programs focus on what might help them meet their measurable skill gains targets. So if we could look at the next slide. Let's look at how we move from risk assessment to actual PD decisions. So Nick mentioned that if a program is unable to meet MSG targets in 75% of its educational functioning levels, that actually puts that program into what we consider to be a high risk category. And so the way to address concerns, MSG concerns, would be to develop in collaboration and in partnership with the state team an improvement plan. Next slide, please, Donna. So this is going to show us how that process goes. It's fairly simple step by step, but I think it's interesting to look. So risk assessment leads to an awareness in some programs' cases of a failure to meet measurable skill gains. And that leads in turn to the need for the program improvement plan. And that leads to, well, this is an actual direct example. It's an actual example. Certain of our programs determined by means of the risk assessment and the performance improvement plan that what they really needed to do was to increase their post-testing, and that would logically in turn lead to more recorded skill gains. So what do you do about that? I mean, awareness is very important. You know, once you're aware of what the problem is, you can talk about how to address it. Well, from that came a focus on, you know, what kind of professional development do we need to come up with? What kind of support can we offer the field? You know, how can we help our programs improve their post-testing percentage? Well, that led to something, the creation of something called the Oregon Leadership Academy. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in the next slide. So the Oregon Leadership Academy initially was a partnership between the Community College and Workforce Development State team and McClendon and Associates, who were a team of expert consultants that we brought into, very experienced in providing ABS professional development, that we brought in to help us. Okay. Within the Oregon Leadership Academy, all of our Title II programs were represented either with program directors or other staff members, in many cases, multiple staff members from each of the programs. But it's very important that every single one of the programs was able to participate. Now, the Oregon Leadership Academy, yes, was introduced pre-pandemic. So as you can see, a lot of our initial meetings were face-to-face, but not only face-to-face. We've had webinars. We've had cohort projects that have been ongoing between the webinars and the face-to-face meetings. And we've had plenty of virtual meetings. And of course, you know, in between the less formal communications via email. So on to the next slide, please, Donna. Okay, so as I've said, the risk assessments which led to the improvement plans identified a clear need to increase measurable skill gains. Obviously, you know, targets are sort of under revision and review at the moment because of the extraordinary challenging circumstances that we're operating in, but MSG will always be of critical importance because we all, with our students at the center of everything we do, we really want our students to succeed, and we want to be able to demonstrate that our students are succeeding. So even if the targets change because of the challenges involved in testing, for example, it's still important that our students show that progress. So the Oregon Leadership Academy, by means of the face-to-face workshops, the webinars, et cetera, that I mentioned before, came up with a list of ways in which to help our programs increase their, or meet their measurable skill gains targets. And these related to such things as quality of instruction. Now, quality of instruction, of course, is being addressed directly by all the help and resources that we have created in order to support the implementation of learning standards in Oregon. That's just one example. Various reading strategies critical, such as, you know, the STAR program that was recommended by the Academy. And something I'd already mentioned, which is if we can increase our post-testing rates by revising local assessment policy and focusing on student retention, that is a big, big piece of the puzzle. Okay, so that's really all I have to say about the process. I'll put my email in the chat as well, and people are more than welcome to contact me if they have any questions, either about, you know, how our process informs our professional development or the actual professional development that we have provided. So thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Helen, and the rest of the team. So now we have a little bit of time for wrap up and questions. I think we've taken several questions during time. And then this last slide really is lists a bunch of the resources. What I would like to kind of put a little earworm in your ear, if you Google Oregon ABS resources, our link to our webpage with all of our resources pops right at the top of the Google engine search. It's my understanding that a copy of this presentation will also be available from COABE. But if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to any of our team members from Oregon, and we will do our best to help you.
Donna.
So any additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
Donna, this is Adrienne. There were a couple questions that haven't been addressed. The first one, can you please, Helen or Kelly, please confirm how often do the programs go through risk assessments?
Oh.
The process, how long is that? How often do they do that?
Do you want me to answer that? It's an
Please.
Annual process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's an annual process. So we start with our we do the monitoring in the spring, as Nick shared, and then we can, based upon that information from the monitoring, we do a risk assessment. And then that risk assessment informs the program improvement plan. And then that program improvement plan is implemented, and then we monitor and assess whether or not it was implemented. So it's a continual annual cycle. So I would say it happens on an annual basis.
Thank you, Donna. And the next one is for you as well. It's based on a rumor. It says, I know. It says, there's been a rumor here in Washington that the education in Oregon prisons is changing, not only in curriculum, but staff. Is this because the performance of the ABE is considered high risk?
There are a lot of dynamics in play right now with regards to the Department of Corrections and their adult basic education services in Oregon. You know, budget certainly is a piece of that. They're looking at service delivery models, and a final decision actually has not been made in the state of Oregon with regards to what the ultimate outcome will be.
Thank you.
So stay tuned.
And there's one question. How much does technology access, or I guess access to technology, play in education access within prisons?
In Oregon, it is difficult. We are one of the states in terms of prison education access where internet access is limited or restricted. And so it does play a role in that area, but the Department of Corrections and our Title II programming at this point has been pretty innovative in terms of making it happen, and Oregon actually has pretty good outcomes at this point for adult basic education in our prison setting. And Adrienne, you could talk a little bit about what the GED testing looks like inside the prisons if you'd like.
Yep, that's fine. And so we do have testing by computer. It's not on paper, it is on computer, but you can imagine how locked down that equipment is. So we do have some, and some of our providers of educational resources have, they're done on the computer as well, but it's limited, and that's the best they can do. So I wouldn't say that they're even using a wealth of them, because we certainly still have the traditional, paper, pencil, resource materials for education in the facilities. Okay, there was another question, Donna, / Helen / Kelly. This is a funding question. What does it take to defund a provider?
So luckily in Oregon, we have not had to do that, primarily because we try to be super proactive. We have had to issue in the past corrective action plan where we were really clear about you have got to do the following things or we are going to withhold your payment. It's funny how money motivates compliance. And so we have not really had that. We've not had to defund in Oregon. We've had to provide some pretty stringent and targeted technical assistance and mandatory participation in site visits and training, but we have not had to withhold any, we've not had to end our relationship with the provider yet.
Thank you. And Allison wants to know, what have we done to increase retention?
Yeah, so some of that has to do with the student services piece in Oregon. We're pretty lucky because we have a few pots of money that can be braided along with Title II. We have what's called our GED wraparound grants that some of our Title II providers have been able to successfully apply and compete for and receive. We also make a small investment for what's called career pathways in the state of Oregon. It's a $2 million carve off from our support fund for community colleges, and some of the institutions use those funds to help with student support services. So a lot of it has to do with being real intentional about what the barriers are for students and looking for resources to help overcome those barriers. And some of that is sometimes, quite honestly, is schedule changes or flexibility in how the student receives instruction. So I would say that it's individualized not only by the local Title II provider, but also by the student, which gets us back to that student in the middle, and then all of us wrapping around together in partnership.
Yeah, Donna, this is Helen. And I think, well, you just answered that perfectly. So I don't have anything else to add other than Adrian and I discovered when we were doing what we called our support and share sessions with faculty, back at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had sort of weekly Zoom meetings for check-ins with faculty in our programs. It was all about connections, making connections with those students, which is really what you're talking about when you refer to those student services. Any way to reach out and connect with the students, which of course is more challenging during a pandemic in many cases. Yeah, and that personalized, individualized approach in as far as people can, just down to examples of things like being able to text students to say, hi, how's it going? Just to check in so that they feel connected to the program, even though they may not be seeing you in a live format.
Yep. So I want to be mindful of time. I see we have one more question in the chat about the type of assessment we're using in Oregon prisons. So Helen or Adrian, would you like to address that particular question?
Adrian, you
CASA's for sure, right?
Yes, CASA's for sure. So actually, in corrections education at the moment, they have been able to continue to do paper and pencil CASA's tests, with appropriate social distancing. So to be honest, the corrections education testing has been more on a par with what it was pre-pandemic than in any of our actual community college-based programs. So we are a CASA state, and so we do require CASA's testing. The remote options for CASA's testing have not been necessary in our corrections programs because they do use paper and pencil tests. Adrian, I don't know if you'd like to say something about GED testing.
Nope, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And in terms of our most programs, 100% virtual, yes, most of ours have gone virtual, and the headcount and retention, there has been somewhat of a significant impact for many of our programs, but we've actually had a couple of bright, shiny spots where actually they've actually seen enrollment and retention kind of stay the same, because students have more flexibility because they can stay at home and access their classrooms. So transportation, childcare, and those types of things, those types of barriers have been removed. I just want to thank everybody on behalf of the Oregon program for joining us, and I want to make sure that we make time for COABE and our sponsor as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. That was a great webinar. I'll turn it over to Shanti to say a few more words, and I just launched our poll, so if you could take a minute to fill it out, that would be great. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Today we've heard some great information, and as you can all see, there was a lot of data that is needed in order to make good decisions. And what if all the data was available in one tool where you could have integrations? So that's what OneFlow does. We bring all the data together and make it available, and also provide functionality like texting the customer, the client, seeing where they are. So you bring it all together, so you can say, for those who have missed an assessment, reach out to them. So by combining the data, you couldn't do that if you didn't know the assessment scores, you didn't know who had tested at what level. So we bring all those, we don't provide assessments, but we integrate. We bring scores like from CASAS, from TE into our system, from TABE. So our solution has portals for students or clients and staff and employers and partners. And we have the capability, and rather than look at all of these capabilities, I want you to think about it in terms of a journey. You have to make it easy for these clients. So if we're helping them through their journey, we're tracking all the data throughout that process. We are able to look at performance outcomes as it's happening and not after the fact. And so there's more ability to impact. So having data gives you the ability to do things like this and have dashboards and have, even the all of the NRS type of data as well, the basics, the skills gain, a measurable skills gain, and so on as well in the platform. So reach out to us if you would like to find out more, myoneflow.com, or you can follow us on Twitter or call us. Thank you for the opportunity. Have an awesome day.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.